Good evening. Welcome to the Village of Riverside Board of Trustees regular meeting of Thursday, November 20th, 2025. Please stand as you are able. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk Stenzel, please call the roll.
Trustee Marchaska?
Here.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Here.
Trustee Gallegos?
Here.
Trustee Mateo?
Here.
Trustee Evans?
Here.
Manager Francis? Here. Attorney Pickrell?
Here.
Also present, Clerk Stenzel.
Thank you. Tonight's President's Report, just a couple of items. Upcoming meetings. On December 1st, the Riverside TV Commission will meet at Township Hall at 6:30 p.m. And on December 4th is our next regular meeting of the Riverside Board of Trustees in the same room, 6:30 p.m. I'd also like to take this opportunity to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Happy and safe Thanksgiving. I hope everyone has the opportunity to enjoy the holiday with friends and family. Trustee reports. Are there any trustee reports this evening?
I only have one to save the date. In case people are not aware, we will have the holiday stroll on Friday, December 5th, and it will be tree lighting and Santa Claus around 5:45ish or so. We'll have all the details for our December 4th meeting.
Excellent. That's Friday, December 6th, holiday stroll. Always a big event in the village. Any other trustee reports? Manager Francis, manager's report.
I have one item this evening. I just wanted to remind residents that our village offices are closed on Thursday, November 27th and November 28th for Thanksgiving. Also, this is a refuse holiday, and so refuse will be picked up on Friday, November 28th. That's all I have.
Thank you. Now on our agendas, we set aside time for public comments for non-agenda items. This is for items that are not on the agenda. When we do come up to an agenda item, we will ask for public comments on that particular item. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to address the board on a non-agenda item? Yes, sir. Please go to the podium, give your name and tell us what you'd like to tell us.
Thank you. Okay. My name's John Frazier. I live at 148 Berry Point Road. And I'm here tonight with my wife, Meredith, to address the ongoing short-term rental discussion. This issue arrived at our doorstep last week after reading the article in the Landmark and understanding in that article that it was our next door neighbor who was quoted in the article who was applying for the license. Since then, we've met with our neighbor on multiple occasions and heard her side of the perspective, helped her understand our side of the perspective. And since we were unable to attend the meeting last week, that was with regard to the committee, and since we're also unsure if we're going to be able to attend the meeting in the upcoming weeks on December 4th due to other plans, we wanted to take the time and address the trustees today. Apologize that we're addressing things that aren't on the agenda, but I wanted to share a little bit of the letter that I shared over to the committee members over the course of the last week. I mentioned that we were recently made aware of this, and I mentioned that we reside next to the property that is exactly next door to the applicant property. We share a property line with the unit that would be in question, and that's why it's of such interest to us to discuss this. A little bit of background. We've been Riverside residents since 2019. Meredith and I settled on Riverside after an exhaustive search in the surrounding areas. We've had our decision reaffirmed repeatedly over the years. We love it here. Our neighbors are wonderful. The village has been great. We've continued to expand on the investment, building out our backyard and additional patio space and continuing to invest in the property. Our daughter graduated from RB. I say all that because I think we've earned the right to have perspective here on this decision that's going to be made here in the coming weeks. Especially after reviewing the meeting online, the recording of the meeting, learning that there will be maybe up to 3 properties initially that are licensed here, one of them being the property next door. So in a very limited market, it would be us that would be most subject to the impact of this. So I'm going to outline a couple of the issues that we see that I think are important to consider. The first one is transient neighbors. When we purchased our home, we did very carefully consider the fact that there were rental properties next door and across the street. After all, rental properties in a residential neighborhood can be seen as, by potential buyers, including us, as undesirable. For resale purposes, we wanted to consider the impact. For us, we noted that these were all long-term rentals, and as we learned, in many cases were occupied by long-time renters. We considered this non-invasive to our investment and knew what we were getting into before the purchase. I'm an advocate for short-term rentals in general, as I've mentioned to our neighbor. In other communities, we use them all the time. We rented through Airbnb, through VRBO. I don't have any issue conceptually with the idea of Airbnbs or short-term rentals. But I'm also acutely aware that when you rent through a short-term rental, you are basically considered a stranger by everybody in these units, in the surrounding neighborhood areas. You're treated as such. We don't know, or they don't know when I rent these units, what my background is, right? What my criminal history, anything along those lines. And they treat me accordingly. And I don't have a desire to question this on a continual basis with revolving rentals that would be coming in the property next door. Issue number 2 is the negative impact that I see to property value. When my neighbor who's pursuing this approached me, I informed her that I was A, super supportive of her right to capitalize on her investment, and unfortunately, B, also not super supportive of having a short-term rental next door. I think both those things can exist together. While it's not ideal that we have a disagreement with our neighbor, I'm happy that we could sit in the same room and have the discussion over the course of the past couple weeks. We did this over coffee in our kitchen, and I just outlined to her. I said, this is, it's interesting that we're having this conversation in my kitchen over coffee, which is something I would never do with a short-term renter that was renting from me next door. I'm interested in protecting our investment, which is the primary reason that I'm here. To everybody here, I would ask, what research have we done to question the impact of short-term rentals to property values in this community specifically? There are indeed numerous studies available on the topic. Most of them are focused on lower income areas where short-term rental actually increases property values because investment opportunity helps increase buyer demand. Also, it forces maintenance on homes that are otherwise not well maintained. The last thing is it boosts the local economy. I think all of these things are not relevant to Riverside. Our property values are stable, high. Homes are generally well maintained, and only 3 rentals, which is what was proposed in this committee meeting, will have a negligible impact on the economy, especially if it's limited to 60 days, which is what was discussed in that meeting. For me, I only see a negative property value impact to the living next door to one of the only transient properties in town. I asked this as well to this group, is have we considered whether this is going to be a material disclosure issue when selling a home? Is revealing the fact that there's a short-term rental next door going to be my responsibility to tell potential buyers? Okay, issue 3 is enforcement. So we noted in the meeting minutes when we listened to this conversation how the village was going to enforce the 60-day year rent. And I know that this is not something that's been decided, but that was what the discussion was about. 60 days a year that these units would be able to be used for short-term rentals. How will the village measure that? How will the village decipher whether a renter is a family member of the person or whether it's a public rental? Will the person owning the property be required to rent it through an Airbnb or through a VRBO? Will they be able to have their own rental sites? How will they know what the background of the person is, what the ratings of the person Those are all things that I haven't heard being discussed, I think would be really important considerations if this were to ever move forward. Or can they rent to whomever they would like? Who will come if I have issues on my property, if I have garbage in my property? I don't suspect that I would have those issues with my next door neighbor, to be very fair here. We have a great relationship. I would expect that it would be responsible. But that's not to say that that would be the thing that would happen throughout Riverside at other locations. Or if this property were ever to be sold and somebody else were to renew the license and would be less responsible. So who's going to enforce the rules? And then the last thing is just about the unrealistic income opportunity. So what has been presented was a 60-day limit on rentals. And I think everybody here doing the simple math would agree that 60 days is not going to be enough for anybody to make this a viable investment opportunity. 2 to 3 bedroom units in this town rent on average $2,000 to $3,000 a month, $36,000, $24,000, right? Somewhere in that range. If you're talking about a 60-day rental, and you were able to charge $300, $400, $500 a night, you're not even maintaining what the long-term rental rent would be. So the reason I bring this up is the viability of this is going to be in question. Anybody who's want to invest in these rentals are going to be wanting to do more, right? They're going to want to be able to rent this whenever they would like.
Mr. Frazier, could you wrap up?
Sure.
I apologize. I should have noted that there's
Yeah,
a
I didn't know
limit.
that there was a-
Yeah, my fault.
First time.
Yeah, my fault.
Okay, so I'll just wrap up. I think for us, this is kind of a common sense decision. If you wouldn't want it in your backyard and you're next door, you would understand why we wouldn't want it next door. I wish that there were Airbnbs in Riverside that were in the commercial district that I could send my family to as well. I don't think they belong in the residential district. And, you know, I don't like being here with my neighbor to disagree on it, but it's the right forum for it. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the public, the Planning and Zoning Commission has had a couple of conversations, if you will, at their meetings, most recently this previous Monday. No formal process has started in this. We'll have on our next December 4th agenda, we'll have an update from our Community Development Director on Planning and Zoning Commission's deliberation. If this moves forward after that, there will be a public hearing with public notices and plenty of opportunity for the public to weigh in on this subject. My guess, if the board decides after December 4th to continue with this, it's going to be January, February sometime, but there certainly will be plenty of notice, again, if the board moves forward with this. But thank you for taking the time to attend tonight's meeting, and we appreciate your remarks. Any other public comment, non-agenda items? There are none. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Clerk Stenzel, please read the consent agenda.
Approved voucher list of bills, November 20th, 2025. Approved Village Board of Trustees special meeting minutes, November 6th, 2025. Approved Village Board of Trustees meeting minutes for public hearing for proposed 2026 budget, Village of Riverside and Riverside Public Library on November 6th, 2025. Approved Village Board of Trustees regular meeting minutes, November 6th, 2025. Review and file Board and Commission minutes. Sesquicentennial Ad Hoc Committee special meeting minutes, October 6th, 2025. Economic Development Commission special meeting minutes, October 8th, 2025. Landscape Advisory Commission regular meeting minutes, October 14th, 2025. Historical Commission regular meeting minutes, October 20th, 2025. Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting minutes, October 22nd, 2025. Parks and Recreation Board regular meeting minutes, October 27th, 2025. Review and file Department monthly reports. Community Development Department, October 2025. Public Works Department, October 2025. Police Department, October 2025. Fire Department, October 2025. An ordinance amending the village code relative to village waterworks and amending a fee schedule. A motion to approve revised 2026 meeting schedule for village board and commissions.
Do any of these items need to be removed from the consent agenda? If not, can I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Motion is made. Second.
Motion and second. Clerk Stenzel, please call the roll.
Trustee Matryoshka?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Trustee Gallegos?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Department, Board, and Commission reports. We have a report this evening from our Parks and Recreation Department. Program Coordinator Siska is going to provide that for us.
Good evening, President Pollock, Village Trustees, Manager Francis. I wanted to provide a quick update on some events and programs that we have coming up for this holiday season. As Trustee Gallegos said, the Holiday Stroll event is taking place on Friday, December 5th, organized by the Riverside Chamber of Commerce. Riverside Parks and Recreation will have activities both at the Water Tower and our Quincy Street Community Center. At the Water Tower, there will be an opportunity for a snowman donut treat, while the Quincy Street Community Center will have a variety of craft activities hosted by both our Parks and Recreation staff as well as WSSRA staff, and a special Grinch photo op. Our holiday bingo bash is scheduled for Friday, December 12th from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Quincy Street Community Center for only $5 per person. Santa Claus himself will be joining us as our official bingo caller for the evening for that event. Our Grinchmas events continue throughout December with our free story time with the Grinch on Saturday, December 13th. From 2 to 3 p.m. at the Quincy Street Community Center, families are invited to cozy up as our green, grouchy guest makes a special appearance for story time. Participants will have time for photos and a chance to interact with the Grinch after. Children 5 and under do need to be accompanied by an adult for this event. On Monday, December 22nd, we will cap off our Grinchmas celebration with a very Grinchy movie and craft day. Children 6 and up can attend this free event at the Quincy Street Community Center from 1 to 3:30 p.m., where we will be making a snowman marshmallow treat, doing crafts, and having a special viewing of the Grinch. The Grinch himself may even make an appearance. Our holiday bingo bash, story time with the Grinch, and a very Grinchy movie and craft day all do require pre-registration, which is available now both online and in our office. And then finally, we are excited to announce that our 2026 winter-spring brochure will be available after the new year with a wide variety of programs, activities, and events for everyone to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Parks and Rec? Thank you. Any other department, board, and commission reports this evening? There are none. We'll move on to pending business. Presentation of proposed Blythe Park Playground, Director Malchiotti.
Good evening, President Pollock, Village Trustees, Manager Francis. Tonight we have Ryan Kelly from DLA Architects, who will be presenting the School District 96 proposed playground project at Blythe Park. It's important to note that this project is relegated to the renovation of the playground and does not include any of the surrounding park areas or the multi-use court project that's being coordinated by the department and will come before this board at a later date. DLA presented and solicited feedback from the Preservation and Landscape Advisory Commissions, the Parks and Recreation Board, along with the School District 96 Board, faculty, parents, and students. Most of that feedback is included in your packet, but Mr. Kelly can speak to that information as well. Also, the Public Works Director and myself are here to answer any questions you may have. And with that, I'd like to turn things over to Ryan.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm Ryan Kelly. I'm the architect of record for the Riverside School District. So in March of this year, as I know you're aware, the village signed an intergovernmental agreement with the school district to develop Blythe Park Playground. In that agreement, the school district would redevelop the playground and the village would maintain it. So I'd like to present the design that we have been reviewing. Yep. So what you see here is the existing footprint of the playground. If you can see in that red dashed arc, we are proposing to expand the existing playground by about 300 square feet. What that's going to allow is for the swing sets, which were a big piece of what the community and the school were looking for. It allows those to shift to the northeast end of the playground. They have the largest fall zone. That then allows us to create zones for 2 to 5 age play, as well as 5 to 12 age play. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I'd like to talk just a minute about the equipment and some of our community engagement meetings, and then I'd like to back up to fencing and erosion and the grades that we've been talking about. But it was important as we met with the community, met with the school, understanding and knowing Blythe Park, that the park reflect, or the playground reflect the park itself. We repeatedly heard that they were looking for something that was organic, something that wasn't mechanical. So what you'll see in this equipment is rock outcroppings as opposed to stairs, log posts as opposed to metal stanchions and poles, and generally a more organic and nature-inspired playground equipment. So I'm going to cycle through a few renderings here. We were able to increase the accessibility of the playground while increasing the capacity by about double. The capacity of the playground as it stands right now for this design is 135 students or children. And then I will back up a little bit here. So a couple of the things that we were looking to address through this design was erosion around the playground. There's a significant drop in grade from the playground surface itself to the grades around it. What you see in this diagram was an initial design that was excavating further out from the playground in order to level those grades, in order to keep it less muddy, keep water and mud running into the playground, which eventually will degrade the surfacing, the equipment to some degree, but it's about erosion control. After meeting with the village forester, public works, several of the committees throughout the district, what you'll see in blue is a revised design and excavation that pulls all of that inside the playground footprint. Oops, sorry, wrong way. So here again in pink, you see the original design. In blue is the revised design. Again, we're looking to minimize the excavation in order to protect the trees. This is something that is obviously important to the community, important to the school. Around the playground are some old, large trees. If you can imagine the canopy of the tree, the root structure below it mimics that canopy. So that's something that we're being very cognizant of as we develop that playground. So this is something that, in going through this process, what we ended up proposing, I don't see, sorry. We have some added exhibits. So what we ended up proposing was a barrier curb, a concrete barrier curb at the perimeter of the playground. Now, one does exist today. It is flush with the grade and the ground around it, but it doesn't eliminate the erosion and mitigate those grades. So what we're proposing is to raise a concrete curb, and by doing that, we're also proposing to put fencing on top of that curb to eliminate the tripping hazard that it creates. So having said that, we have looked at a lot of different designs. Again, our initial design did not propose a fence or a raised curb. But again, to eliminate the excavation and looking to preserve the trees and that root structure, this is the design that we came up with. We've been working with the village and village engineers on a couple of different options. They, prioritize erosion and mitigating those grades in a different way. So I think that this is still an item that's open for discussion. But something that we'd like to, talk with the village trustees about and get your feedback. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I could talk in more detail about how we would develop that curb or the specific elements around it.
Is that your full presentation?
That's my full presentation.
Very good. So what we'll do here is, first I'll ask trustees if they have any specific questions for you and your team, and then we'll go to public comment.
Okay.
And then we'll come back to discussion by the board. So any specific questions for Mr. Kelly or his team?
Not right now.
I
So-
have one,
Sure.
and it's not just for Mr. Kelly. So our code has a chapter dedicated to preservation. Within that, there's a section on public lands, and under that, there's something for recreation areas. Our code says that any playground equipment must be made of natural wood or stone materials or materials dark in color. Not all these colors are dark. Do we have concerns?
We always have concerns about compliance with our codes. I guess I would start with Mr. Kelly, say, do you believe you're in compliance with that code?
I would think in general we are. I would guess my return question would be the blue, I would say is potentially not in compliance. There are other colors that piece of equipment can be. I think the rest of them are, but I don't know what dark colors means in terms of the ordinance. So if we could define that, I could speak to that more directly.
It's the blue and white that caught my eye the other night.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that comes in other colors, natural colors, and it's made of wood, so that could fall within the ordinance for sure.
So I think the response that you need to be aware that when you go out, when you finalize your plans through staff, they will enforce that code. And so they will tell you, okay, this meets the code or doesn't. So there could be some slight modifications
Sure, understood.
for the final plans. So, any other questions? Any public comments on this item?
Yes, sir.
I really hope that's not open. It is not. I apologize for that mistake. Good evening. I'm Joel Marhol, recent District 96 school board member and frequent volunteer for other community events. I supported the IGA and development of plans to replace the playground with the expectation and mandate to protect the adjacent landscape, particularly the trees. That was something we specifically, sorry, not we anymore, but that is something that the school board put special attention to. As you know, and Ryan mentioned, the IGA was born out of the fact that there are what staff calls property line ambiguities, and the village in District 96 will be pursuing more definitiveness for ownership of the area. The IGA, as Ryan mentioned, also provides for the district to construct the playground with the village, Parks and Rec, maintaining it afterwards. However, this all serves to support the fact that the Blythe campus, the school, and the park is a shared space. The school architect has presented their preferred design with the fence and the raised curb. But, and this is important, they should not and cannot be the final word on the design. And Ryan opened up his design to some revision. This is public infrastructure, and considering the location, as Trustee Mateo mentioned, it needs to both support the recreational needs of the school children, and it needs to respect the public space it occupies. Revisions to the design are expected and warranted when we're talking about public infrastructure. I fully support the layout and the minor expansion of the new playground. This is reasonable. The very extensive drainage system that Ryan showed us within the play area will address the bulk of the identified issues with regards to water. Currently, the playground is in a low spot, so it does get a fair amount of water. That's recognized. However, I do not support a fence around the park. It would severely constrain the current use. Right now, kids are free to use the equipment and then run on the slopes and around the trees. Lots of choice for them. This is what kids should be doing and not restricted to one single space, either out in the woods, grass, or playground. Yes, they can go through a gate, but the gates can be closed. and that's by its very nature restrictive. Additionally, this community tries its very best to limit fences in open spaces. This board, supported by planning and zoning and village rules, codes, does not generally allow fences in open spaces. And when it does, it is very, very conditional. We've seen this in the past. None of the other public parks, Harrington, Patriots, or Turtle, has a fence. All of the parks have a curb flush with the adjacent ground and a play area sunken down a bit, 4 to 6 inches, for example. And as I recall, when Turtle Park was reconstructed a number of years ago, it was sunken down a bit due to community input. At the school board discussion on the topic, the board members there noted that they did not prefer a fence. At Preservation, District 96, Landscaping, Parks and Rec, and today, the architect explained that because of drainage and erosion control, they need an extra high curb to keep water and debris from getting into the play area. I think I'm good on time.
Yeah.
Then, they say that because the curb represents a tripping hazard, a fence is necessary. Please let that sink in. The only justification we have for a fence here is because of this extra high curb resulting from a design decision. The designers have explained some of their constraints they are working around, either here or in previous presentations, and alternatives they considered. A question has been asked about having a raised curb at all. They said it would reduce the life of the equipment. That was previous presentations. If the equipment was continuously wet. But that's a false choice, as I noted before, and Ryan showed us today, an extensive drainage system is planned within the play area. It is not a choice of no drainage versus drainage and curb and fence. To be honest, the play area drainage could be installed with only limited replacement of the existing concrete curb to address the concerns and problems that cause the play area to be wet right now. I'm just going to skip a little bit here. I believe and I know that the curb and fence combination is not the best and the only viable design. There are other perimeter drainage solutions that should be and can be considered. For those who do not know me, my day job is in planning and design of infrastructure. Right now, as an old boss used to say, this is all on paper. It can change. The architect needs to do a better and can do a better, more reasonable design. The district wants to move forward with these plans so that they can start construction in the spring. That's reasonable. What I ask this board to do is to allow them to go forward with their plans, subject to the condition that they revise the drainage so that a fence does not become required. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Trustees, discussion. Based on the feedback I've been getting, it seems like there's one major issue, which is what Mr. Marhol had brought up, the perimeter curb and railing. Let's start by saying, are there any other discussion not on that subject? If not, we'll focus on that. And I open it up for discussion and comments.
Well, I'll start. I am very much sympathetic and in agreement with the concerns over changing the way that children use Blythe Park Playground. I think the ability to go from a swing set to, sit under a tree, or to just have the freedom of movement, to take that away from future generations is really, really problematic. And I do think that it is more than possible to, seek out expertise and come up with alternate solutions for erosion control and drainage issues that do not involve fence.
I will add that, as I said, that was the feedback that I've gotten throughout the week. And Manager Francis had asked our village engineer, Burke Engineering, to look at that. And Burke Engineering came up with this bottom graphic, which they believe will address the drainage issues without the need for a curb or a railing. If the majority of the board is in agreement that you'd like to see other plans beside, that exclude or remove the fence and railing, or fencing and curb, I think we are best out, well, first I would say, I would ask the school district representatives if they are willing to work with a plan, maybe not this exact suggested edge detail on the bottom of the screen there, but something like that. If they're willing to continue working with our engineers to come up with something, we could approve it subject to general compliance with that edge detail, with the details, further details be worked out between the engineers and village staff. Or we could table this if you want to see it come back to us. But I guess I'd start by asking Mr. Kelly or whoever wants to address it. Is this something that we can work with?
I received this detail at about 4 o'clock today, and I don't think that it takes, well, I've got some questions about it. I've got a lot of questions about it. I'm not sure what it's taken into consideration in terms of the grades. I think that this, and I touched on this a little bit, but this design raises the entire elevation, as I understand it, 5 inches across the entire playground. That was part of our initial design, as I touched on very briefly. After meeting with the village forester, it was noted that that was not preferred because that would cause compaction, additional compaction on the roots of the surrounding trees, which is why we pivoted and went to that other design, which did not raise the elevation of the playground. So to address this detail, I mean, I'd need to understand it a little bit better. I mean, I'm not sure that it really takes into consideration the entire site. So,
Okay.
I mean, I really haven't had time to look through it or talk with Christopher Burke, who we worked with before. So, and I don't know that they've had the luxury of seeing the entire set of plans.
Right. I appreciate that. So, and I appreciate that our village forester would have said, as he should, that lifting the grade is not preferred.
Right.
I would agree with that. It's not preferred.
Understood.
Personally, I think it's preferred over the option you've come up with, though.
And that's, and.
It's the
and
lesser
so-
of two
and so
evils,
that's
I
why,
guess.
you know, a set of priorities,
Right.
I think, needs to be established. Because
So,
there are many things we're juggling here between tree preservation, erosion control. And so, you know, we have been given some directives from the school board because that's who we report to.
Yeah.
And have certainly worked with the village to understand your priorities. I understand fencing's not the first option, so.
I would like to call on Public Works Director Dan Tabb to give his comments, what he thinks about from a Public Works perspective.
So obviously a hot topic, right? Fence versus no fence. Ryan did mention we met out there months ago to give our opinion when questioned as to the original plans. As he alluded to, we did express the concern if the park were to be elevated and we're putting dirt on top of tree roots and the compaction. Not, you know, at that time, while we expressed our concern, we didn't give any direction as to how we were to infer this as to proceed, whether there was a curb or a fence. You know, we just expressed our concern about the trees within the vicinity of the park, roots, drip lines, and so forth. I guess going back to the fence portion of it, you know, this alternative detail that you see on the bottom, as Ryan mentioned, would be increasing the height 5 inches of the play surface. We're not talking about adding dirt. Having spoken with our engineer, the intent is to not add dirt onto the existing tree roots. The intent is to raise the play surface an additional 5 inches with mulch, which has been noted a number of times in previous presentations by the architects that mulch is, the weight ratio of mulch to dirt is about 10%. So again, we're trying to meet in the middle here, right? So if we're having to concede in certain aspects of adding additional mulch to potential existing tree roots that have migrated underneath the play surface, that's understood from that perspective. The grading issue, the current grade with the curb line, again, when we met out with, at the location with them, there was concern about the severity of the grading that was originally proposed. There's a slide up here that had pink and then blue hash marks, pink being the original, and the original grade was up into the tree roots, actually in close proximity to the trunk itself, right? So if we're grading that far back, even if it's air spading and root pruning, there is a probability that the trees will suffer as a result. So the proposed curb fence lessens the severity of the grading back. This option, as you're raising the play surface and feathering the mulch and the cobble that is noted on here, you're reducing the grade to a certain extent, and it's kind of meeting in the middle, right? We're trying to, at the end of the day, look for a fence alternative. And while this is a very rough cross-section, further discussion could be had between our engineer and the architects to try to iron out some of the details. And at the end of the day, we understand the school district wants to build a park and the village wants a park, right? We're trying to meet in the middle somewhere, and I think our engineering firm and the architects can find some middle ground to this without a fence. But again, this was a quick turnaround. It's not obviously detailed. There's no 3D renderings. We're not seeing what it would look like from, as if we were to stand there like some of the other drawings. So this is just an option in its infancy, I would say.
Thank you, Dan.
Sure.
Any questions for Director Tabb? Thank you.
Well,
Trustees, any further comments? Any further discussion?
Well, I would also not like to have a fence, but to be fair, it's a railing, it's not that tall, but I just don't want to see that kind of hardscape in our public properties if we can avoid it. I also want to minimize maintenance. I mean, then we have to maintain the curb and we have to maintain the fence. So if those aren't there, then that's less work on our part.
I just have a
Yes.
clarification question for Mr. Keller. We're hearing both sides of the story on here. But I'm not in favor of a fence at this point, but could you just clarify, is the...
Directed to me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Is the purpose of the fence to stop the erosion, or is that for the curb to stop the erosion?
The curb stops the erosion. It varies in height from 6 inches to 15 inches. At 15 inches, we consider it a tripping hazard. So the fence is there to eliminate that tripping hazard. So the fence is solely there to eliminate the tripping hazard. The curb is there to eliminate the erosion.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from trustees? If not, I would like to suggest, and I like District 96 to agree with this, I would like to suggest that we have a motion to approve the plan, subject to the District 96 and the village, or the engineers for each, to finalize an edge detail that does not include a railing or fence. I believe, based on the original idea that the school district had, which I assume was their preferred way to do it, is consistent with the changes. So I would hope that that's something pretty easily worked out, the details worked out between the two parties, the design professionals. So we would approve it subject to that. If they can't come to agreement, it would come back to us. If the District 96 just says, hey, we've got to do it this way, then it would need to come back to us. I wouldn't put that on staff, and we would approve it. But I'm very confident that something can be worked out. But I would ask Ryan if you could, does that work for you?
Yeah, I think, yes, I think we just need to establish, what those priorities are. I think we can't solve all of the things. I think the trees are the priority. And then beyond that, I think we need to just establish some priorities. But there are options. They all have pros and cons.
Right.
So we're asked to approve everything except the perimeter.
Well, yes, we're approving it subject to revisions to the perimeter detail, that edge detail, and alternatives to that would not include a raised curb or a fence/railing. They would have to come up with a way to manage the drainage and keep that edge level. I imagine it would look something like the suggested edge detail you see on the screen. Could be slightly different. But yeah, that would be the general approach. Manager Francis.
I just wanted to make mention, the reason why Ryan Gately selected the cobblestone feature was to mimic the cobblestone gutters that are in Harrington. So just to make mention of that point, kind of tying in different pieces, historic pieces.
It's refreshing to know that our engineers have that in mind.
Yeah.
That's good. The copper gutters that were, or the granite gutters that were everywhere in this village at one point, all streets had
Yes.
those. Yes.
Yes.
The
And now,
remaining ones in Harrington.
yes, and preservation is looking to have that landmarked in the future.
Excellent. So if trustees are in agreement, I would ask for a motion, such a motion. The motion would be to approve the final plans subject to revisions to the edge detail that would eliminate the raised curb and railing and provide an edge detail comparable to the one suggested by the village engineer.
I'll make a motion.
Motion and second. Any discussion on the motion? Clerk Stenzel?
Trustee Marshowska?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Trustee Gallegos?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Motion is approved. Thank you.
This is a great plan, though. I mean, this is exciting, and I'm happy
Yes.
for the kids in the coming years. So thank you.
Next on our agenda is consideration of a motion to approve the Village of Riverside Energy Plan. Clerk Stenzel.
Good evening. The Village of Riverside Energy Action Plan began with former Assistant Village Manager Ashley Monroe, Trustees Marshowska and Evans, as well as the feedback, support, and guidance of the C4 community stakeholders, and Riverside residents. The plan will act as a complement to the Road to 2050, the village's climate action and resilience plan, and is in line with the village board's current strategic goal of implementing and expanding sustainability and environmental health initiatives, as well as plays a role in future strategic goals that the board has discussed. Melanie Nutter of Nutter Consulting is here to present the plan.
Great, thank you, Emily. Good evening, village trustees, President Pollock, Manager Francis, and village staff. My name is Melanie Nutter. I'm the principal of Nutter Consulting, and thank you for having me here tonight. I'm excited to present the Village of Riverside's Energy Action Plan, which has been developed in partnership with the village staff and trustees, and is funded by the Illinois EPA's Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program. This plan builds on Riverside's longstanding leadership in sustainability, including its 100% renewable electricity aggregation program, and participation in regional climate initiatives, which you've been on the forefront of for the past few years. Tonight, I'll walk you through what's in the plan, what it means for residents and businesses, and how it aligns and strengthens your Road to 2050 Climate Action and Resilience Plan that you've already adopted and are implementing. So, like many communities, Riverside is already experiencing the effects of climate change. More frequent heavy storms and hotter summer days. We know that by 2050, Cook County may see more than 30 days per year above 100 degrees. So at the same time, Riverside has an older housing stock. Over 60% of homes were built before 1940, which means higher energy use as well as higher natural gas demand. So in 2022, from your most recent greenhouse gas emission inventory, the community generated 80,131 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. Nearly 2/3 of those come from energy used in buildings. So that means the biggest opportunity for reductions as well as cost savings are in homes, in schools, and businesses. So a little bit more specifically on your greenhouse gas emission, this is the big picture of where your greenhouse gas emissions come from. 49% come from homes, 32% come from transportation, and 15% from commercial buildings. And if we zoom in even a little bit further, we see that natural gas use in building alone accounts for almost 40% of all emissions. So the most impactful thing that Riverside can do, both cost-wise as well as climate-wise, is help households and businesses reduce their natural gas use through energy efficiency upgrades as well as electrification. So the Energy Action Plan focuses on 4 main areas that you'll see here on the slide. The first is energy efficiency and electrification. This is a sector that starts with things like weatherization, installing efficient appliances, and transitioning away from natural gas heating. The second is renewable energy expansion, so that is looking at putting solar on homes and public buildings, and if that's not possible, participating in community solar programs. The next is sustainable transportation, so looking at installing more EV charging, doing more around anti-idling, especially near schools, and also supporting walking and biking. And then lastly is equity and resilience, ensuring that seniors, renters, and low-income households in Riverside can participate in these programs. So these, again, are your main levers of opportunity to address climate change while also reducing energy and gas costs, specifically reducing natural gas use in homes, supporting electric vehicle adoption and expanding charging, and then increasing clean electricity and resilience locally. So as part of the development of the Energy Action Plan, we did an extensive community outreach effort. So we had 130 survey responses to our energy access survey that we distributed both online as well as offline for people who might not want to take it digitally. We got 360 votes on interactive boards that were placed around the village in different locations, including the library and Village Hall. And then we also conducted 10 in-depth stakeholder interviews with leaders from the school district, businesses, churches, the library, energy contractors, as well as some individuals from your commissions. The message from residents and all the stakeholders that we talked to was really clear. They want to save energy, they want cleaner options, but they need help overcoming the 2 biggest barriers, which are cost, as well as not knowing where to start and how to get this done. So a little bit more about what's in the plan. I'm going to talk specifically about these few sectors. So energy efficiency and electrification. We go into quite a bit of detail. The plan takes an efficiency-first approach. So this essentially means that before we talk about heat pumps or solar panels, we start by reducing energy waste. So sealing air leaks, upgrading insulation, and encouraging the replacement of old appliances. The plan outlines programs like group purchasing, vetted contractor lists, and energy audits to make that process easier and more affordable. On the municipal side, it includes benchmarking your own buildings and exploring energy service performance contracts, financing tools that allow upgrades with no upfront capital for the village. Oh, sorry, before I leave that. Couple of benefits just to mention from taking actions within the sector: lower utility bills for families and businesses, increased comfort in older homes, cleaner indoor air quality, especially when replacing gas stoves and furnaces, and then importantly, big reductions in natural gas emissions, Riverside's largest emission source. So on the renewable energy strategy side, the plan expands access to encouraging clean energy in multiple ways. The first is looking at solar on any municipal facilities that you might be able to pursue. Second is support for residents and businesses through things like group purchasing and helping to bring down the cost of solar panels. Community solar subscriptions for people who can't put panels on the roof but still want to access cleaner energy through community solar, and then exploring battery storage and geothermal opportunities. Those are more long-term but still encouraged for the village to look at. For businesses and residents, the benefits include long-term cost stability, resilience during outages for the village, and of course a visible sign that Riverside's climate leadership is continuing. For municipal buildings, rooftop solar also reduces the village's long-term operational costs. And then finally, in the sustainable transportation sector, transportation is your second largest source for emissions, so the plan focuses on a few things. An electric vehicle first municipal fleet procurement policy, so looking at when you might have to retire any of your existing vehicles, how to transition those to either hybrid or preferably electric vehicle. Installing more public charging stations, especially in your commercial area, walking and biking improvements, and then community education around idling reduction, again, especially near schools, and EV incentives. These actions help to reduce local air pollution, lower fleet maintenance costs, and do support mobility for residents of all ages. They also prepare Riverside for the rapidly growing electric vehicle market, which is continuing to grow. So on the equity side, one of the key parts of this plan is really making sure that those who are more vulnerable in the community do have access both to the climate benefits and the cost benefits of implementing this plan. The plan specifically does target support for, again, seniors, renters, and low-income households who happen to face higher energy burdens but have fewer resources to make these upgrades. So this includes things like partnerships with nonprofits, incentives for retrofits, and strategies to reach residents in flood-prone or heat-vulnerable areas. So the Energy Action Plan, as I mentioned, builds directly on the Road to 2050 Climate and Action and Resilience Plan. It supports the same long-term emissions reduction goals of 65% by 2040 and 80% by 2050. It also strengthens your commitments to renewable energy and electric vehicle adoption, and does help you continue your participation as a leader in the regional initiatives like the Greenest Region Compact and C4. So the projected benefits, if the Energy Action Plan is fully implemented, the plan could help Riverside achieve a few things. First is a 35% greenhouse gas emission reduction potential by 2030, which would help you get to your 2040 and 2050 goal. And then we calculated the cost savings. So for any participating household, they have the potential to save roughly $1,000 annually in energy bills, which is significant. And participating businesses could save $10,000 annually in savings by implementing these strategies. So these are real tangible benefits that improve affordability, comfort, and quality of life. And then again, success overall would include these additional things: lower energy burdens across households, a more electrified village fleet, increased solar adoption, more electric vehicle chargers, as well as more walkers and bikers, hopefully, and then also just really helping the village become a healthier, more resilient community, especially in light of extreme heat and storm events. So that is what's in the plan. Hopefully that gives you a good sense of what's included in there, as well as how it relates to your Road to 2050 plan. The next steps following the plan adoption is including launching a community education campaign, so that's the next step. Considering the formation of an implementation team and starting potentially municipal building benchmarking would be one thing that the village could start. We would also begin rolling out resident and business support initiatives, so promotion of energy audit programs, identification of qualified contractors, and solar education. Our team at Nutter Consulting will continue to be on contract with the village for the next few months to provide any technical assistance that's required regarding implementation, as well as any support that you all need on your community outreach and education campaign. So with that, thank you for your time this evening. I'm happy to take any questions or comments that you have.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions or comments? It's a very, very well done plan. We appreciate it very much. Any public comments on this tonight? There are none. I would entertain a motion to approve the Energy Action Plan.
So moved.
And seconded.
Kristen was supposed to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I removed my second then.
Second. Our C4 trustees, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Marshowska.
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Trustee Gallegos.
Aye.
Trustee Mateo.
Aye.
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Motion approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a resolution to approve the Village of Riverside Land Acknowledgement Statement, and I would like to read that statement. A resolution approving the Village of Riverside Land Acknowledgement Statement. Whereas the Village of Riverside's location near the Chicago portage attracted early indigenous peoples and later European traders and settlers, and whereas the village acknowledges that the land on which we live today was previously inhabited by numerous indigenous tribes, and that these indigenous tribes suffered great injustices during their removal through colonial force. And whereas we regret this painful history and commit to atonement by endeavoring to provide accurate accounts of Riverside's pre-settlement and settlement era history, celebrating the legacy of indigenous peoples, welcoming indigenous peoples, treating them with respect and dignity as all people are deserving regardless of culture, race, or identity, and living in harmony with and protecting Riverside's forests and green spaces, the Des Plaines River, and the flora and fauna. Whereas creating an attractive, healthy, and welcoming environment where people want to visit and live is essential to the village's overall betterment and vibrancy, including supporting its people regardless of culture, race, or identity, and enhancing its spirit of diversity. And whereas people of varying backgrounds, perspectives, ideas, and cultures have made and will continue to make countless contributions to the village. And whereas the Village of Riverside seeks to acknowledge the wrongdoing by colonial forces and is committed to treating all people with respect and dignity. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village of Riverside acknowledges the suffering of indigenous peoples, celebrates their legacy, and dedicates itself to creating a diverse, inclusive, and neighborly community that promotes the longevity of the forest and green spaces, Des Plaines River, and the flora and fauna with whom we share a home. Dated November 20th, 2025. This has been in the works for a while, as you all know. Our Riverside Historical Commission did a lot of great work, and we really appreciate the time they put into that. That was the basis of this statement. We did modify this somewhat from their original submission, but I believe it accurately reflects the values of Riverside. Any questions?
Just in time for Thanksgiving.
Just in time for Thanksgiving, thank you. Any public comments on this particular resolution? No public comments. If there are no questions or discussion by the board, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
So moved?
Second.
Motion and a second. Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Marshowska.
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Trustee Gallegos.
Aye.
Trustee Mateo.
Aye.
Trustee Evans.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Thank you. Next on the agenda, a resolution to approve, next page, resolution affirming community values and public safety principles. Again, I'd like to read the resolution and then we'll proceed with questions and public comments and discussion. The resolution affirming community values and public safety principles. Whereas on September 21st, 2017, the Village of Riverside Board of Trustees adopted Resolution 2017-042 titled Statement of Diversity and Inclusion Policy, which proclaims the village policy of diversity and inclusion. And whereas Resolution 2017-42 concludes that the Village of Riverside has always been dedicated to creating a diverse, inclusive, and neighborly community where people with varying backgrounds, perspectives, ideas, and cultures can come together in a beautiful, safe, and harmonious environment that promotes mutual respect and understanding. And whereas the Village of Riverside is aware of immigration enforcement activity conducted by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and other federal law enforcement agencies around our community, and whereas Riverside residents have expressed questions, concerns, anxiety, and fear regarding federal immigration enforcement within Riverside and surrounding communities, and whereas the Village of Riverside and Riverside Police Department are committed to ensuring the safety, security, and well-being of everyone who lives, works, and visits Riverside, and whereas the village encourages all persons to join efforts to achieve the village's goals of protecting life and property, preventing crime, and resolving problems, and whereas immigrant community members should be treated with respect and dignity and should not be subjected to physical abuse, threats, or intimidation. And whereas this resolution will promote the general welfare of the village residents and visitors alike. And now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Riverside reconfirms its commitment to celebrate and encourage diversity and a spirit of inclusion among its residents and visitors, and will continue to advance the principles of freedom, equality, and justice for all, and resolves that A, citizens are encouraged to notify the Riverside Police Department by calling 911 if they witness immigration enforcement activity within the Village of Riverside. The Riverside Police will respond to any report of federal immigration enforcement in the village with the intent to protect the peace, de-escalate confrontations, and if appropriate, enforce local and state criminal law. And B, the Village of Riverside, its elected officials, staff, and police officers will treat all citizens with equal respect and apply all laws equitably regardless of immigration or citizenship status. And C, the Village of Riverside will comply with the Illinois Trust Act, including its prohibitions on assisting with immigration enforcement, providing information to immigration agents, and stopping, arresting, searching, or detaining a person based on their citizenship or immigration status. And D, communications and resources will be provided to the public in Spanish, English, and other languages whenever possible. Dated November 20th, 2025. So I would start by asking if the trustees have any questions.
Can I suggest an edit?
Okay,
Didn't see it before. So under B,
yes.
Riverside officials, staff, and police officers will treat all citizens with equal respect. How about all people with equal respect?
That's excellent.
Noted. I like that. Anything else? Any other questions? Any public comments on this item? Please introduce yourself and remember, try to limit your comments to 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's great. Hi, everyone. My name is Carla Altmeyer. I live here in Riverside as of 2020. I have 2 kiddos at Blight, so I'll send some comments related to the park later. I'm also a former immigration attorney. I used to represent folks who were detained, and I currently run a nonprofit in Chicago. I'm one of the founders also of the Riverside Rapid Response Group, a mutual aid community group of community members that just really care about our community and the safety of everybody. So I first want to start with a thank you for taking this seriously. I know I've reached out to a couple of you individually, and you all are really committed to ensuring that everyone can be safe in our community, especially people who are currently being targeted unlawfully unlawfully or with, force that is problematic or not respecting of due process for individuals. I want to share kind of what we and myself, including others, have been advocating for, and I want to talk about where I see alignment and where I still see room for growth. And I think that requires for us to take some risk. So here's what we've been asking for. We've been asking for a prohibition of discrimination on threats based on citizenship status from all town officials. We've asked for the prohibition of the collection and sharing of immigration status at all levels of town government, not just the police. We've asked for the prohibition of sharing of information of town residents to unconstitutional federal registry programs. That is something that has not happened, but that is something that is anticipated to happen. Ensuring that town resources are available in multiple languages, and prohibiting the unlawful use of force or violations of due process rights, federal, state, or local levels. So we do see alignment with the proposed resolution. One, I think I really appreciate the framework for inclusivity and ensuring that it's uplifting all individuals, and that individuals should be treated equally regardless of immigration status. So I think that's important. I also appreciate the affirmative action or the affirmative way that everything's phrased rather than kind of the prohibition way. That's just helpful to know, like, this is action-oriented towards ensuring that we're actually taking action in the village to protect community. And it addresses language access. Here's where I feel like the resolution maybe falls short. So one, the prohibition of collection of immigration status is limited to police, as under the Trust Act. I think there is an opportunity to expand that throughout the town. And so being able to say that we want to apply this for all town officials, I think that's something that could potentially happen. The second piece, and I think one that concerns a lot of us with young children especially, is the prohibition or something that limits the unlawful use of force or the violation of due process rights. Now, I know that there is this commitment to advancing freedom, equity, and justice. But right now, federal law enforcement is using really harmful tactics to enforce their priorities that are harming not just the individuals who are being detained, but everyone around them. There have been instances in city neighborhoods like Logan Square, Albany Park, where tear gas that is being bombed into the community is actually leaving remnants. Tear gas has really bad impacts for folks with respiratory issues. My child has a respiratory issue. But in addition to that, it just is like not safe for kids to be playing around or going back outside. There's all of this there's all this cleanup that has to happen as a result of the use of those kinds of chemicals. And nobody is taking responsibility for that, and I mean at the federal level. So it does leave it up to municipalities like ours to then invest in kind of cleaning up those kinds of toxic chemicals. And finally, most importantly, I understand why, I have a deep understanding and appreciation for the limitations sometimes of government, right? Where like we have the tools that we have at our disposal, and one of the tools that we have is the police, right? But I want to share just a couple of perspectives that might help encourage like not putting all of our eggs in one basket as to like how we're going to address immigration. I think first, or the current immigration enforcement tactics. First, the communities most impacted currently are likely not going to call the police, right? So people of color, people who've been criminalized, they're not going to call the police because there's a lack of trust. And now there might be trust with specifically Riverside Police, but that's unknown. And I think that that's just something to be mindful of. And even if somebody else calls police on behalf of somebody, who's experiencing this, there's no guarantee that that person will actually feel safe or that there will be this kind of protection. And second, I think it's while I do think that the resolution goes at length to try to create some clarity as for the role of police, it still remains unclear. I really actually feel for police officers because they are caught in the crossfire of federal agencies and community and not knowing what to do. I've seen incidents in Chicago where police officers are arriving to the scene to de-escalate in order and only to be tear gassed and then be victim to like all of these other tactics. There's also been incidents in Broadview where state police are supposed to be supporting or supporting the freedom of speech, and instead there's aggression towards protesters. And I think the intention is well-meaning, but I'm concerned about the unintended consequences of relying on police to be the way how to create this barrier for federal enforcement. And so what I would encourage the village to consider and you all to think about is really thinking about, is there a way to prohibit explicitly the use of masked agents, of agents who are not identified, of vehicles who are not following Illinois law by changing their plates, of prohibiting chemicals that are being banned by the UN and are not even allowed in warfare to be here in this village. And I know that that requires some gymnastics, some legal gymnastics, maybe looking at the Illinois EPA, maybe looking at some other legislation that we wouldn't normally look at. But I know, again, I know your heart is in the right place, and I would hate for that energy to go into an effort that may not actually lead to the results that you're looking for. I want to thank you all again for your commitment, and I'm happy to continue speaking with you all, and I know members of the Rapid Response Group are also happy to continue to work with you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Many of the issues, all of the issues that you've brought up, we've received in emails over the course of the last few weeks, and all of those were considered in depth. And I believe that all of them, one way or another, or to the best of our ability, are incorporated into the resolution. I would ask Attorney Pickerel to kind of explain why the text may be a little bit different in what we wrote and what we can and cannot do.
Absolutely. Thank you, President Pollack. And first, let me just say I deeply respect what you do, and I appreciate all your efforts. As you know, we are a municipality, and that means we are subordinate to state law and to federal law, and you're an attorney, and so we're constrained. The Illinois Municipal Code defines what we can do, and so what this resolution represents is our commitment to protecting immigrant communities within the existing confines of the law. There's a lot going on there, and you talked about a lot. I'm going to touch on a few things. First off, there are, first, the Illinois Trust Act. So I'll tell you how I interpret the Illinois Trust Act, and this is the village's interpretation. So the Illinois Trust Act governs both law enforcement agencies and law enforcement officials. It defines law enforcement agencies as, quote, an agency of the state or a unit of local government charged with enforcing state, county, or municipal laws. That's the Village of Riverside. The police department is just a division of the Village of Riverside, and the police officers would be considered law enforcement officials. So I think the best interpretation of the Trust Act would be to apply all of its restrictions to all village employees. That's how I interpret it. So perhaps that will address one of your concerns. Others, there's, like I said, we have a universe of authority that we can govern what is and what is not a lawful force. That's governed by state law. There's a long body of both statutory now with the Safety Act, and then additionally case law interpreting what is appropriate under whatever circumstance. And obviously that is, I speak as a former police officer myself, one who has been tear gassed myself in the course of my duties. It is enormously fact specific what we do, and it's really difficult with a sort of generalized statement of support to try to identify specific responses to specific situations. And what we landed upon was that our officers are very well trained. They're well trained in de-escalation. They're well trained in the use of force model and current Illinois law. And if somebody commits a crime, whether they are a citizen or a federal law enforcement officer, they will take action. There's, I believe I just read in the news recently, an ICE officer was arrested, and nobody is above the law, and there is no provision of federal law that allows ICE to commit crimes, and so when the police officers respond, of course, that also applies to citizens, and we will react appropriately. Yeah, banning certain chemical agents, that's something, again, that's, I think, maybe beyond our authority. I know that oleoresin capsicum, OC spray, pepper spray, those sorts of things are commonly used by police officers. I'm interested to hear if you think that there is a legal issue with some of those. Please do let me know, and if there's something that we can do that would be very helpful to know. But I'm not sure that this particular resolution would be the way to do it. And I think you ended with a lack of trust with the police department, and how do we act as a barrier to ICE? Unfortunately, the word barrier concerns me because ICE has a statutory mandate. They're federal law enforcement. Our role is not to act as a barrier to prevent. Well, we do not assist ICE. We do not assist Border Patrol, but we also can't obstruct them either. So typically, we stand by, and if we see wrongdoing, we take appropriate action. But if we were to try to obstruct them, then that would be obstruction of justice. And I think you acknowledged at the beginning of your comment that there's an element of risk to some of the suggestions. So what we have, I will tell you, I believe I read maybe some emails that originated with you, I'm not sure, but what you were talking about, I read and absorbed and discussed with President Pollock and Village Manager Francis. And I believe that what we've prepared here best does the most that we can within the existing law, and represents our commitment to protecting immigrant communities as best we can.
Thank you, Attorney Pickrell. I wanted to emphasize 2 points because I got direct questions over the course of the week. One is, again, the Trust Act applies to all of us, every village official and staff. And we will enforce any violation of criminal law, period. Whoever does it. So I want to emphasize those points because that seems to be the 2 points that have been most directly brought up. So, trustees, questions, comments, discussion? I would add this document has been through a lot of iterations. We've gotten a lot of input from the community. I think before our last board meeting, we got maybe a dozen different emails, which we appreciate greatly. We were able to craft this, I think, in an effective way because of those emails that we got from residents that gave us the language. And of course, with our village attorney, our police chief, Manager Francis, and all of you combined, we put this together. So I feel really good about it. Sorry, questions or comments from trustees? If not, I would ask for a motion to approve in a second.
Would this be subject to the amendment suggested
Yes.
by Trustee
Yes.
McHale?
Yep.
I just wanted to acknowledge you, and I appreciate your concerns and the current concerns of a lot of the community members that have written in even tonight. And it is frustrating to try to balance, what government can do with what the community believes and, what a lot of us believe that we should be able to do to protect our citizens. I don't think that our resolution is perfect by any means, but I just wanted to reiterate that it is difficult to balance what the government can do and what the community can do, because we do want to try to implement every protection that we can think of. It's just, it's not always possible to bend things the way so that they fit the way we want them to fit.
Thank you. If there's no more comments or questions? I'd ask for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Marshaska?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Trustee Galagos?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Motion is approved. I would like to add, we've approved 2 resolutions here in a row, which I think we should all be very proud of. And thank you to the community, thank you to the trustees, our staff, everyone for all your input into this, both those resolutions. Next on the agenda, discussion and review of 2026-2027 strategic plan. Manager Francis.
Thank you. In your packet this evening is a draft of our 26-27 strategic plans. Over the past couple of months, the board and staff has met to discuss long-term, short-term goals, overarching goals of the village, and from that, and departments and commissions, we've created what is our strategic plan, and is setting the framework not only from a budgetary standpoint, but also from values, goals, objectives for the next 2 years. And so this is a working plan. Obviously, it's subject to updates within 2026 and 2027, but items that were newer additions based on the feedback from the last special meeting that we had is celebrating the national 250th, and so it's more targeted items. We did put in $1,000 into our budget relative to these items, and so one is participate in Illinois America 250, light the train station with red and blue lights, as it's done for July 4th, but it would be for 30 days. Typically, we've done it in the past for approximately 2 weeks. Illuminate the water tower with red and blue colors around with gobo, which is the projection of the different lighting that you see. Currently, it says it has our Riverside 150 logo. This gobo would read USA 250, and that would be for 30 days, so it would be synced up to our lighting of the train station. And then Riverside TV video production of the illumination and events during 2060. So those are the items that were requested to be added. Relative to National 250th. The other objectives include advocate for home rule legislation for communities with a population of 5,000 or more, create e-bikes and e-scooters ordinance, which also includes create an education and enforcement plan for e-bikes and e-scooters, preserve and promote important birding area, pursue Bee City designation, encourage rear facade improvements along the BNSF line, and evaluate opportunities, costs, and return on investments for Riverside shops. And we will work with the consultant to create the Riverside shops if ultimately the board decides to move forward. Those were the items that were added. There was some wordsmithing that we had done during our actual strategic planning session that was incorporated in the draft plan. If the board has any additions or changes, those will be made before our meeting on December 4th, in which we will incorporate the finalized strategic plan into the budget document, and it would be accepted with the approval of the fiscal year 2026 budget document.
Thank you. Trustees, questions, comments?
Are we not calling it a semi-quincentennial? Is that too much for people to remember now that we got sesquicentennial all taken care of? 250 is fine.
It's just easier.
Thank you very much for your work, pulling together all of our thoughts and taking the time in our strategic planning to listen and really try to distill all of the many bullet points into something that is a very strong plan for the future.
Thank you.
For the public, the village board held 2 special meetings, one in October and one in September and October.
2 weeks ago.
November.
November and October.
November and October. And where we spent over an hour each time, hour and a half, talking about strategic planning, creating these goals, And so, appreciate all that effort that was into it. And I reiterate or confirm, agree with Trustee Evans's comments about Manager Francis putting this all together at the end. Any other questions or comments? Any public comments on the strategic goals? If not, I'd ask for a motion and a second to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Motion and second, Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Trustee Galagos?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Motion's approved. A resolution adopting a vision statement, values, and revised mission statement for the Village of Riverside, Illinois. Manager Francis.
Thank you. So as part of our strategic planning discussion, we identified a vision statement and values. We already had a mission statement, but the mission statement was revised. So I'm going to read off all 3 items that is listed for board consideration. And then if approved, this would be incorporated in our various village documents, in the budget, and on our website, et cetera. So the mission statement is to provide responsive and responsible municipal services, preserve Riverside's unique historic and natural character, and engage the community in a planning for an equitable, resilient, and vibrant future. Our vision statement is Riverside is a thriving, historic, and sustainable community that embraces its Olmsted heritage, fosters civic pride, and delivers exceptional services. And our values are integrity, innovation, stewardship, excellence in service, community engagement, and transparency.
Thank you. Questions, comments from trustees? This is related to our strategic goals that we just approved. Any public comments on this item? Could I get a motion and a second to approve?
Second.
Motion and second. Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Marshall?
Aye.
Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Trustee Galagos?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo?
Aye.
Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion approved. Discussion regarding amusement tax. Director Zavala.
Good evening, thank you. When the grocery tax was approved to sunset as of next year, January 1st, the board directed staff to look for another option that would not be considered a regressive tax. The village does have the authority to impose a tax on amusements. The PowerPoint shows the types of activities defined as amusements and is included in your agenda packet. The tax to be imposed would be a streaming tax. On the last bullet point, it states any video streaming, audio streaming, or remotely accessed online games made available or delivered within the village. This is an additional tax and would not replace any or other tax already in place. The streaming tax does not cover cable services. The rate would equal 5% of the charges for the streaming service. The estimated revenues to be collected are a little bit less than the grocery tax revenue as seen in the chart and is included in the 2026 budget. This tax would be collected by the village directly and not the Illinois Department of Revenue. The process would be comparable to the Places for Eating collection tax process. There is a third-party company that does offer to run the collection process, but there is a large percentage of each payment that they collect, and it is a multi-year contract, 3 years. The village will save by completing the collection process in-house, but it may take some time to implement. It is just gathering the data that we already have and mailing out the ordinance and registration and return to those companies. The communities listed currently impose streaming tax and the rates are shown. Chicago is the highest right now. They just raised it to 10%, 10.25 at the beginning of this year. Staff does require guidance on whether to draft an ordinance for collection starting in 2026.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from trustees, comments?
How will this work? What data do we have? I mean, and what, can you give examples of streaming services?
Yes, so it's a lot of them. It's like Apple, Prime, Netflix. It's not cable. It's a streaming or an online game, even if they purchase it or they rent it. So how it works is the data that we already have with IDOR. If an ordinance is approved, we send out the copy of the ordinance, registration form that we complete, that we create in the village and a tax return, same as places for eating. They have a registration and a tax return that they submit monthly. It would be the same process, and we mail that out to the companies, and they have to follow the ordinance, and they have to file with the village every month.
So would we anticipate that streaming is going to get more expensive with more communities adopting this?
It may. I can't speak on behalf of a company, but
And I'm not sure if you noted it, but I was asked what this tax money would be used for, and I'll repeat it. It's needed to promote the general health, safety, and welfare of the village and its residents. So, general fund?
yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Manager Francis.
If I may. So additionally, like Director Zavala stated, this is basically replacing the revenue gap that was created with the grocery tax. Additionally, yes, to your point, yes, streaming services, you know, they'll pass along that direct cost or that tax. But looking at it in comparison, a lot of individuals moved from cable services, Xfinity, to go to more targeted apps that they like to utilize in streaming services such as Netflix, the Amazon Prime, etc. And so they've actually put, not that we're in the business of trying to level the playing field by any means, but they've actually put Xfinity at a disadvantage, and actually they pay us in not only a cable franchise fee, but also they pay for different PEG fees that then those resources help to offset costs that we have for Riverside TV, and we don't get that from the streaming. And so in that particular respect, Xfinity is actually, customers are paying more to help provide resources for the village and right of way. So that's the other thing that's always forgotten is, so that's why we collect the franchise fee, is because Xfinity or Uverse, they utilize our right of way for all of their cabling underneath. And while streaming services need that cabling in order to make those different connections, unless you're doing Wi-Fi, which even that, they're probably utilizing some sort of fiber infrastructure that's within the village, they're not paying those fees. And so it is a little bit of an offset to help manage that, because what a lot of residents don't realize is with all that cabling and all that infrastructure that's non-village related, sometimes we have to work around it when we're doing our own projects for village infrastructure. And it's not just a problem isolated to Riverside. There's a lot of communities that have that. Sorry, I just wanted to give that additional background.
Yeah.
Trustees?
It's very interesting how much you know about every nook and cranny of the village.
Trustee
I
Fitzgerald.
have a few questions. One leads to the next on it. So how confident are we that this is a replace? How confident are you with that 40,000 number, and how do we derive that?
I've spoken with another community comparable to the size of the village of Riverside, and when based off of their numbers and their population size, we're estimating. We won't know exactly until the first year.
Great, thank you. So the other part is, and I'm just looking at the executive memo, and this is what it's going to phrase off of. You know, when does admin costs outweigh that $40,000 projected revenue? Because in here it says that the collection is going to be done in-house, but it may potentially go to a third party. How much does that take away from that 40,000?
The third-party fee, when I spoke to the other community, was 32%
32%?
of each payment.
Okay.
So what we are looking at is working with, we've been doing a beta with MGP, along with Brookfield, Glencoe, Buffalo Grove, to create different apps. And so one of the things that we'll be talking with them for 2026, and they're very interested in this, is creating an app, which would be a portal for basically for this amusement tax for individuals that have to remit, uploading their returns so that it makes it a more streamlined process and makes it easier for us. I'm not saying that it won't take staff time, it certainly will, and we'll have to navigate that this first year, similar to when we implemented the Places for Eating tax. There was a learning curve and different processes that had to be refined over time.
Thank you. The third one I have a question is actually more to you, to the city attorney, is, so recently, the state just tried to push this through at the state level, and it was stopped in the House. It went to the Senate bill, only on the matter that it removed the 7% amusement tax that was going to be statewide. In the future, if let's talk theoretically here, if we were to implement this, and in the future, the state implements it as well, does that compound it or does that replace it?
The state's tax would be independent of our tax. They would be cumulative for the taxpayer.
So we'd move from potentially 5%, theoretically 5%.
Yeah, so it's, if we had a
to
5%.
12%.
Correct. If we had a 5% tax and then the state had a 5% tax, the taxpayer would be paying an additional 10%.
And the mechanism to, or would there be mechanisms in place to repeal that on our end?
Yes, we can repeal a tax anytime.
Anything more? Any public comments on this item? We'll just add that, did you have a comment?
Say that it is appropriate for the village to look to replacing the grocery tax with another source of revenue. In other venues, I've always been in favor of making sure that we made any agency, organization, the village, make sure that we maintain our revenues to maintain the services we already have. And so, in a sense, it was inevitable that the village was going to have to consider something. And no one's going to like the tax, but this is on a sorry, I can't think of the right word. This is a choice. Sorry, say that. Yes, thank you. Discretionary. You're good, Doug. Thank you. President Pollock, you're very good. Discretionary taxes should be considered much more acceptable than things that are unessentials. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Joel. And that's exactly what, why I think this board took this up is, when my household budget gets tight, I'm going to eliminate Netflix long before I stop eating. So I think it's a good trade-off for us. If there are no other questions or comments, I'd ask for a motion, or is this just direction to proceed with an ordinance?
Yes.
So the consensus is to proceed with an ordinance. Thank you. Next on the agenda, resolution of the Village of Riverside, Illinois, to authorize the village manager to accept a proposal to provide professional audit services for the fiscal years ending December 31st, 2025 through fiscal year ending December 31st, 2029. Director Zavala.
Thank you. At the completion of the audit for fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024, the current contract with Lauterbach and Amen had expired. In the beginning of September 2025, staff published a request for proposal for professional audit services for the fiscal years 2025 through 2027, with an option to renew for additional 2 years to obtain a contract with an audit firm. The village conducted this process for our future audits on behalf of the library, as they are a component unit of the village. The RFP was provided to 11 firms and published in the Landmark newspaper as well. 3 proposals were received from the qualified firms after consideration of the input received from the library, which is audited along with the village and pays for their own audit. The recommendation would be to continue with Lauterbach and Amen due to the cost savings the village and the library would receive. This chart shows, can you go back one, please, Emily? For those of you who like numbers, this chart shows the three firms that did submit proposals. We have Selden Fox, Sickage, and Lauterbach and Amen, and they are in order from highest to lowest proposal, from top to bottom. The top chart is the village audit, and the second chart is the library's audit. You can go to the second one. And for those of you who do not like numbers, you can look at it. It's very easy to read. We have color-coded. You can see the blue is Lauterbach and Amen and how low it is compared to the other firms. I believe it's easier to look at. Yeah, the costs weighed heavily on the decision, especially for the library. Their costs are more than double, starting off with another firm. We are happy with Lauterbach and Amen, and we will take precautions to switch out our team that does do the audit now to make sure we are in accordance with any independence rules.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the board? Any public comment on this item? I'll entertain a motion to approve in a second. Motion and a second. Clerk Stenzel.
Trustee Marshaska? Aye. Trustee Fitzgerald?
Aye.
Trustee Galagos?
Aye.
Trustee Mateo? Aye. Trustee Evans?
Aye.
Motion approved. Discussion of recommended fee increases and code adjustment for fiscal year 2026. Director Zavala.
Thank you. On an annual basis, finance will review fees that are charged to ensure costs are comparable to other communities and the operation costs to provide service are covered. This year, there are 3 items to review for implementation in 2026. We'll start first is the administrative adjudication hearing fee. The village has been supporting adjudication hearings at Village Hall for 13 years now. This is a service that is provided as a convenient alternative to attending adjudication at the Maplewood Courthouse, which assesses higher court costs. Staff has researched other surrounding communities and has found that an administrative hearing fee is being applied upon a finding of liable or not showing up for adjudication to cover the cost of the hearings. Due to the high cost of hosting adjudication, staff does recommend adding a $30 fee as an administrative fee to assist with offsetting this cost. There's multiple costs that go into hosting adjudication. We pay for a hearing judge, we pay for a village prosecutor, and we have staff that attends the hearing. It's building staff and staff from the police department, along with myself and the community development director also attend at times. Outside vendor costs range up to about $34,000 a year right now, and that's just that cost alone and not including staff time. If the village did decide to research this, staff will work with legal counsel to implement this in 2026.
Great.
Any questions? Any public comments on fee adjustments?
I have 2 more.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Very, very quick, very small one.
Sure.
The second is the special event application fee. A considerable amount of staff time is used to assist in coordinating special events. Sometimes events are rescheduled, and even more staff time and costs go into that. Staff recommends adjusting the special event application fee from $10 to $25 to better offset the cost of coordinating, while still being reasonable amount for all community groups and individuals to afford. Lastly, is just a code update to the false alarm fees. This was reviewed last year and adjusted as part of the review process, and a portion of the code needs to be adjusted just to match what was approved last year. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further questions or, I asked for public comment. There was none. Entertain a motion to approve, or no, I'm sorry. Consensus is to proceed with direct, with the ordinance, unless any questions? No. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our meeting tonight. We do not have need for an executive session this evening, so I would ask for a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. We are adjourned.